Last Minute Blues Podcast with Donnie, Alex, Jeremy, and Jeff Burton.
It is the Last Minute Blues Podcast. Donnie Fandango joined in the studio by Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN. Alex also handling your post-game intermission festivities for Blues broadcasts on 101 ESPN.
Hey-o.
And our dude, Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic, he writes a zillion articles, and then you guys make fun of me for not reading them, even though I do.
Sometimes.
Gentlemen, what the heck is going on?
I was going to say, how you guys doing?
Oh, I'm fantastic.
Yeah.
I got to tell you something, and I hate being this way. I really try to appreciate every day and not look too far down the road. Guys, I am so friggin' excited for Sunday evening. I don't even know what to do with myself. Everything between now
what's
and
Sunday?
the, and the Bills-Ravens game.
It's a day off
The
for
Chiefs
Blues.
play on Saturday, so I figured that was the more important one. And the Lions play on Saturday.
I don't appreciate the tone
Sorry.
or the message in which that you're bringing to me, Ferrario.
I work with BK way too much. I'm sorry.
I'm just telling you that I'm really, 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 really excited.
Donnie, Alex and I had the game yesterday, the practice. Bring me up to speed. Who do they play?
The Ravens.
The Ravens.
Yeah. And I don't think we're going to win.
Oh, I do.
You do?
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad that you do.
Lamar Jackson is a choke artist, man. I am steadfast in that. There's a playoff performers and regular season performers, and Jackson is not a playoff performer.
Okay. Well, then here's what okay. So then So if the Bills do beat the Ravens, and then the Chiefs beat the Texans, which they will, and if the Bills lose to the Texans, lose to the Chiefs, I don't know that I can ever speak in public again. I cannot take another L to that fan base. Not so much Mahomes and Reed. I like those guys a lot. It's that fan base.
It's BKs. It's the BKs of the world.
Yeah.
I get it, man.
I was supposed to go to a game there this year, but I just didn't think that I could keep my mouth shut.
Would it be easier for you to lose this week than next week?
Yes.
Wow.
I hate saying it that way.
That's wild.
But yeah, man.
I get it.
I would hate to advance.
Well, no,
I would hate to get to the next round.
Well, but I mean,
it's the Chiefs.
But you don't understand, like, the built-in Bills fan setting myself up for the absolute worst-case scenario at every angle.
Oh, yeah.
So that, to me, I mean, it's almost like losing another Super Bowl.
If they get to that point, I think we should get together and watch it with Donnie, because I'd like to experience this. I hear about it all the time, about like how Donnie is the roller coaster in sporting events.
Yeah.
I'd like to experience it in person.
Okay. So what are we saying? So for AFC Championship game?
Yeah, I think you should come to the Champ Bash, the 101 ESPN.
I'll be
does.
there. I got my ticket
I think you should come to Champ Bash, and I think you need to watch it with us. I think you need to sit at a table with me and JR so that we can experience this.
Because that way, like, if they played each other and it got down to, let's say, like 13 seconds left in the game, it's over, right? At that point, it's over.
Or if it gets to overtime. We don't know how that
That
goes.
might be the worst thing I've ever said.
That is 100% the worst thing you've ever said to me. That hurt, Jeremy.
I'm sorry.
That hurt.
That dug deep, man.
That really, really deep. All right, I might just do that.
All right, I might come hang out with you guys.
I might do that. Well, it sounds like a good time. And then also, I legitimately, for the game this past Sunday, I was in my office at home, and I was just pacing in front of the television set. That's all that I did. And then at some point I sat down, relaxed for a minute, and then got back up and did the whole thing again for the second half. I just cannot be still when I'm watching. Even when I'm watching a Blues game, a lot of times I'm standing up in front of the TV, kind of watching. That's just sort of my go-to.
I'm trying to find the picture that I have. I have a picture of a couple of years ago when the Cincinnati Bengals beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, and I have a picture, and it's gold, of BK's face when the Chiefs lost that game. And it's just like I use it everywhere I can. Every time you wake up, you're like, man, I need to smile. Pull that picture up.
I have a picture of Jerry Jones with his head in his hands after the Bills crushed him on Thanksgiving Day a couple of years ago. And so when my buddy Hoss calls, who's also a Bills fan, it's Jerry Jones with his hands buried in his face, which is fantastic because I love seeing that guy sad. Like, that's one of my very favorite things in the world. Okay.
It's funny you say that, though, about how you pace the room in the Blues games, because that's how I actually picture you.
That's exactly how Bobby Plager was. That's how I picture Donnie.
Well, I don't even know why the thing that's so ridiculous is I don't know how big the TV is in our living room, but man, I mean, it's a big-ass living room TV.
20-inch.
It is not.
Michael Scott from The Office, it comes out from the wall, and it's this little, like, computer screen.
I splurged on myself.
I splurged.
Got the plasma. But like, there is no discernible reason for me to need to stand 3 feet from the television set to see anything.
Tell that to my 3-year-old with Frozen.
Wait, which TV are we talking about? Because where I'm from in Jefferson County, our TV's set on top of the TV below it. There's one on top. Usually the one top is smaller than the
Where I'm from
console
in Jefferson County, my TVs have backs to them.
We've got a TV stand or whatever the hell it is, or a shelf. A thing that you stand the TV on. I don't even know what we're calling it these
Tony
days.
wasn't expecting this conversation.
But yes, that's the games in which that I'm into.
TV
man.
shaming.
That's just kind of what I do. So, real quick, change of subject. I guess I can't say every bit, but a good chunk of that Blues Flames game last night, I liked what I saw. And just in general, what a freaking fun game between two teams that seem to be locked in from the time that the puck dropped. That was a really fun game to watch.
I felt like a playoff game.
Absolutely.
Like especially, I guess I shouldn't say that felt like a playoff game, but the way that this is set up feels like a playoff set.
Yeah.
Right? Where you got Calgary at home, which, again, it's so freaking odd to be saying it's a must-win for St. Louis in the middle of January, but Calgary at home, you need to win it. You win it, and then you get a day off, and then you play the same team on home ice, which I'm expecting you're probably going to see maybe a different look to both sides in terms of goaltender. Like, that's pretty cool to me. So, I mean, frankly, just that game itself, I was impressed because their last few defensively, it's kind of been shaky, and I've been a little concerned. Mm-hmm. And then it's like you play that game against Calgary. They gave up 3 high-danger scoring chances to Calgary in that game. Like, they gave up total in that hockey game. They didn't give a shot on goal on the power play, if I'm not mistaken. They had 2 of those, and Calgary didn't get 1 shot on goal. Like, that was a defensive clinic last night. A couple of opportunities by Calgary, but overall, it felt like they kind of shut them down.
Donnie, believe it or not, I have some degenerate friends who often approach me and
Wouldn't
say,
believe it.
Me too,
so
man.
what
Jefferson
do you think?
County.
I'm placing a bet tonight. What do you think about the Blues? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't get into the betting, and I don't know.
Nice save.
You can't predict. Yeah, you can't predict. You can't predict the pucks, right? I always considered hockey like, why do people bet on this? This is nuts. But somebody asked me going into that Columbus game, what do you think about tonight? I said, well, Monty said they're rocking and rolling. They just came off one of the best games against Anaheim. If you're going to bet on a game and you're going to bet on the Blue, maybe tonight's the night. Yeah, it should be pretty good.
JR. Read the room.
Read the room. They lose that game 2-1. And so going into last night, like Alex said, whether you call it a playoff game, it's a situation that sets itself up for you. Better be ready. Like if you think you're a playoff team, you've got to come out and play. And I sit next to Alex in the games, and he probably noticed last night, a couple 30 seconds into the game, I got my head down. I'm still kind of getting settled in, ready for the game to start. And Colton Parayko scored.
Yeah.
It's like, now that's the start you need if you want to be ready to play a game. And speaking of Colton Parayko, holy smokes, what a game last night.
By the way, that's why I sit next to JR. He kind of needs that like mouthpiece to him to where he's like involved in the story. And I'm like, JR, big move. And then he looks up and then we're golden.
I actually was.
I'm the Robin to his Batman.
The very next thing that I was going to bring up was the game in which the Colton Parayko played last night. He was absolutely amazing, and one of my favorite things, and we have made fun of Colton Parayko before, or I have, on the podcast.
Yeah, let's get about Colton. That was Donnie.
No, I would say this to him. His pressers after the game crack me up. He seems as though, and I've just met him once, to be one of the nicest guys ever. Last night, he looked pissed off at somebody, and I loved every second of it. He had that little edge, and I'm not saying that he doesn't play every night with an edge or with an attitude, but last night it really seemed like it came to the forefront, and you could see it, and I loved it.
He had a play against Calgary in the third period that I think it was at Pospisil, who came in and he dumped the puck around Parayko. And I've never seen this from Parayko before, but Parayko just put one hand on him, and he just shoved him into the boards. Like, he just man-strengthed him into the boards, and then he just turned around and slowly glided back to the puck. I told this to Joey on postgame. I don't know what has changed with him because his all-around game just feels different. There is a little bit more physicality. This guy does not care where he shoots the puck from anymore. And like over the last few years, it's felt like we've always said, why won't he shoot more? You need to put that slap shot on the net more. Now he's not only taking slap shots from the blue line, He's jumping up into the face-off dot. He's taking quick wrist shots. He's doing wraparound plays. He is what Joey calls kind of the versatile forward, the positionless player, because he's not just a defenseman. He could be a defenseman for you, but he's a forward if you need him to be. And that's where I think Colton Parayko, he has now 7 even-strength goals on the season, which is tied for third most in the National Hockey League amongst defensemen.
Man, that's amazing.
And he's got 9 total goals. Like, this guy doesn't play power play time, and he's got 9 goals.
25-35 of ice time. He had 4 shots on goal, 3 block shots. Yeah. And in his last 5 games, he's got the 3 goals. And he has 12 shots on goal in that span. So that goes to what you're saying. And he did say after the game that, they're trying, Monty and the coaches have them playing up closer to the forwards. You could tell, on that play where he dips down, gets a shot on goal, rebound, Fowler, shot back, then Parayko, and then he picks that spot. But I got to tell you this, to go back to your point about the interviews, post-game interviews.
Yeah.
You don't know how to set it up. So you say, hey, Colton, I know you don't stick your chest out here, buddy. I know you're not going to sit around and, hey, look at me. But
he does this. He says, "Hey, look at me."
my chest sticks out automatically. But I said, it's got to feel good to just play lights out like you did tonight in a big game like this. And Donnie, let me see if I can do. Oh, it's nice to play well. Honestly, my job is to show up to practice and games and be my best and help this team win. I'm just trying to be my best version of myself, and that's all I can do.
Did you know we were co-hosting with Colton Parayko?
Dude, it's so great to have you here, 55. But I love that sort of the way that he. Again, that's just why I love it when he loses his marbles a little bit, because it's just not something that you expect. All right, so here's a question. Guys, at this point, please help me understand, seriously, why he is not considered a A1 defenseman, because we have talked about it over the course of the, we've said he's like a 1B. He's probably your best defenseman, but it just does not seem as though he is considered to be a 1A. What is he missing from his game to make him that? Or are we seeing maybe sort of an evolution, a further evolution of Colton Parayko that takes him up to be that 1A that we want him to be?
I am going to defer to JR because you work with a man that despises Colton Parayko and Dom.
Oh, and Dom, yeah. Dom came around, right?
Yeah, well, he's trying to come around in that article he wrote with JR. But one story doesn't defeat everything you said over the last 4 years.
What D is referring to is my colleague at The Athletic, Dom. Worked with him for a few years now and still can't pronounce the last name.
Oh, me neither. Lucian?
We'll just call him Dom.
Yeah, Dom L.
And he's been hard on Colton, and I get it to an extent. If you look at the quote-unquote underlying numbers, the analytics, and people, when they hear that word, they're like, oh, don't tell me. But he had a great playoff run in 2019 with Jay Bowmeister. We all know that. Everybody's like, wow, this is amazing. Shutdown pair. You had Alex Pietrangelo playing above you. And then when Alex left and Doug Armstrong said, now Colton is the alpha male, and he had to assume that number 1 role, I think people had high hopes because of what he had done in 2019. But he didn't quite live up to it in terms of being the guy who could do it all and just be that Drew Doughty, be that, top pair guy, number 1 guy, unequivocally. But so then he has the back issues,
right?
And he kind of struggled through that a little bit, and then he was not himself for a while. Then the Blues go through a 2-year period where they're just letting in goals, like it's leaking water, right?
Yeah,
and so
tapping goals.
So now you're up to 2 or 3 years where he's just not quite what people maybe thought he could be, and I think that's where the reputation comes. So it's hard to change that opinion when that's what the storyline is for a couple years. But now you look at him like we saw him last night. Oh, and that's the other thing. If you're not contributing offense. And so if he's not on the power play and he's not putting up a ton of points, he's put up 35, a couple years. So if he's not putting up 50 points, you're not going to be in that discussion.
All right. Can I ask this question that I really don't understand? Why in the heck would he not be on the power play? Why is that?
Well,
I mean, I know he's not. Okay, let me see if I can answer this just to a degree.
Oh, I like this.
I know that he is not like a quarterback, like a Krug or like even a Perunovic. But still, he's a big fella that can keep the puck in the zone with a great shot. So why the heck would he not be there?
Well, I mean, so going off of what past coaches have said, because I have asked Drew Bannister this, and his reasoning behind it was, we didn't want to use him on the power play because he felt that the most important shift is that shift right after the power play is done.
Okay.
And basically what he's saying is, so you've got 5, they've got 4, they kill that off, they've got the momentum, and they get their 5th guy back out there. And if you've got Parayko on the power play, or if he was on the first unit and he's on the bench, he's not on the ice to kill off that momentum opportunity for the opposition. Okay. That was his example or explanation why. I have been fighting for this fight for a long time. Like, I think Parayko should be on the power play. He's not a quarterback. You're absolutely correct. He's a shot. And that's what they had him as last night. Fowler was your quarterback, and they put Parayko on the far side flank to kind of be that shooter mentality, and he was getting set up for it. He just couldn't really tee off that one-timer or get the puck settled in enough time. He's got the shot, and if you go back his first few years under Ken Hitchcock and then Craig Berube, he was a power play guy. He was playing on that second unit, and he was putting up, I think it was that 2019 season and then the 2020 season. That's where he had back-to-back 10 goals, and he was playing power play there.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is, he's got to use his shot. I mean, so many people within the Blues organization have been preaching to him. Al McInnes, Larry Robinson, when he was here. I remember when Larry left the organization, I called him. I said, hey, talk to me about Parayko. And he said, if you knew how many times we told him, take that shot. So he's not a quarterback, even though he can play up there. So if you put him in a shot position, you need him to shoot the puck. Mm-hmm. He's doing that more now. And he didn't do that in the past. So I think between what Alex said, that you want him to play that shift after the power play, if the other team's top lines come out because they weren't on the penalty kill for their team, now they're coming out on the ice, the Kucherovs, Pasternaks, those guys are coming out on the ice. You want Colton Parayko out there, and can't do that if he's coming off the power play.
Well, I think oh my gosh, I just had a friggin' phenomenal point that I was absolutely going to pat myself on the back for making. God dang son of a gun.
I have these all the time. It's called pre and post games.
Sorry. And it just completely went out the other ear. It's just weird to me with the way that this power play has had its struggles, why you wouldn't put the big guy there and just see what happens. Oh, I know what I was going to say.
Yes. This is going to be a first.
I think last night might have been the first time that I really noticed Cam Fowler running that power play, and holy Mary Mother of Pete, is it unbelievable to watch that guy skate with the goddamn puck. Yeah. There was just this one particular play where he just kind of crossed in front of it was skating backwards, like assessing the situation. I'm like, dude, I would have fallen 12 times. It was just really remarkable. And when you see guys that can do it effectively that way, it's just really something else. But I still don't agree with Parayko not being on that power play. I feel like that's something that I would do as an overthinker.
You know what I would do?
Like leave him off. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what I would do with Parayko, or at least I would try, and this is why I'm doing a podcast talking Blues and not actually a coach. I'd put him in the front of the net. Like, I would put him, and I know that's what, remember, this is what Chicago did with Dustin Byfuglien. This was a while ago, but like Byfuglien was like a net front presence, and then when he was traded when he went to Winnipeg or Atlanta at the time, and then all of a sudden he was a defenseman, I'm like, wait, what? And then I found out Byfuglien was a defenseman, and I'm like, wait, so why was he being used as a forward? Oh, that's why, because he's a brick-ish house, and he's standing in front of the net. I mean, like, Parayko has scored plenty of goals standing in front of the net. I know you got Jake Neighbors, and I know you got Oscar Sundqvist, but why the hell wouldn't you put a 6'6" defenseman just standing in front?
You know what they need to do? They need to put Colton Parayko in front of the net, like you're saying, and mic up the other goalie. I want to hear this. Like, are you effing kidding me? Where the hell's the puck?
And Parayko turns around and says, please, language.
Hey, I have said multiple times on this podcast in the history of my time with Oscar Sundqvist in St. Louis how much I am a fan of him. I really enjoy him. I love watching him play. Guys, can you explain to me why he would be on the power play?
Net front presence.
Net front presence.
In Sundqvist, his bread and butter is net front presence. I don't know if I agree with splitting up the units. I still think, and we talked about this yesterday on BK and Ferrario, I still think I would be going with one heavy unit and try and score in the first 90 seconds, and then put that second unit out there to at least try and get some momentum. And, granted, none of it's worked so far this season, so why not keep trying things? But, yeah, you don't have any other net front presence guys without Oscar Sundqvist and Jake Neighbors. Those are the two players that you have that play that roll.
All right.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. It's just as I'm looking out there and you're looking for guys with skill or what have you. Nothing against Oscar. It's just maybe not the
just a
first
body
one
in
that I
front
would
of the
think.
net.
Although I will say that deflection by Radek Foxa, maybe I'd start looking at him out there on the power. That was a pretty tip in front of the net.
I know that he is, one of those guys that is essentially, for lack of a better term, sort of a placeholder for, I just have really loved what he has brought in all of the games in which that he has
always just
played
plays like he's pissed off.
And I love every second of that big
They
shocker
really
there.
missed him. They missed him when he was
Oh,
out.
yeah.
Absolutely so. All right, so guys, essentially in this race for the second wild card spot, if I'm not mistaken, it is a Vancouver, Calgary, Utah Blues situation.
Right.
All right?
Yeah.
How do you guys, as we sit here in the middle of January, we've got 4 nations coming up in a month or so, how do you guys sort of assess the Blues competition at this point? As an outsider, it seems as though Utah is maybe underperforming a tad bit. I'm not necessarily sure that I believe that I think that the Blues can beat them out. Calgary, I really think that that's a team the Blues can catch. Vancouver is the one that worries me because of just the sheer amount of talent that they have on that team. Tell me why I'm wrong.
It's funny that you ranked them that way. I would say Vancouver's the one that I least worry about.
Really?
Because of all of their internal issues right now. Until they figure out the Pettersson, JT Miller stuff, I think that team is going to be having soap opera after soap opera after soap opera seasons.
But you still don't think they're just good enough to sneak in?
I think when you have those types of issues, and this could just totally be me, I think when you have those types of issues in your locker room, it leaks onto the ice. And you've seen that this season.
So I get a combination of your two responses. I'm in the middle. I think Vancouver is the team that I worry about too in terms of, if you're a Blues fan and you're looking at the situation. And I agree with Alex that he says they've got a lot of drama going on. But to me, it reeks of one of these guys gets traded, JT Miller, in 2 weeks, and the team just takes off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But how far do you dig yourself in the hole?
Yeah,
That'd be my question for Vancouver. And look, they won a couple of games, but I think they got their butts kicked last night. And I forget who they played last night. But I just don't know how they make a move because JT Miller's got a no movement clause, and I don't think they should trade Elias Pettersson. They feel like they're stuck, but you have to make some type of change if you're that team. Utah's the one that worries me more.
Really?
Utah has always given the Blues fits. And, I think they've played already once this season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I believe they lost that game. I'd have to go back. This has been a wild year so far. Utah's always one that scares me. Nick Schmaltz and Clayton Keller just seem to always have the Blues numbers. They're injured right now, and I don't think they're getting healthier. Some of their defensemen are down. But they're a team that always screams they're going to be the one where the Blues go on a 2-game win streak. They beat Calgary twice, and then Utah finds a way to upset St. Louis on the road. And that's the part that I'm always concerned about.
Here's the thing is one of these teams has to go on a roll.
Oh, yeah.
And typically it does happen. You're not going to have the 3 or 4 teams that we just talked about just play 500 hockey. One of them is going to catch some sort of fire and continue to play well. But the bottom line is this: the Blues, as we've been saying for weeks, and you can't continue to play 500 hockey, be inconsistent, and think that you're going to be in that picture. If the Blues, even Vancouver's issues, Calgary maybe not being the team that they think they are. If you're the Blues and you can't reel off 7 in a row here soon, it's just not happening.
And
you're
you can't win these games in regulation. I think that's so critical. You have to win Thursday in regulation against Calgary. You have to win in regulation against Utah because 1 point could be the difference at the end of the season where you're like, damn, should have won that game. That's why that goal by Foxa was so important because, man, if that goes to overtime, the first game of those two, how deflating is that if you're St. Louis? Man, this is great. We won, but you needed that 2-point swing rather than the 1 point in their favor.
I was reading through some articles in The Athletic over the course of the last couple of weeks.
Not JR's.
Just not JR's, just skipping those completely.
Me too, buddy.
It's okay. I'm skipping Point Fest.
I could say something, but I would get myself in trouble, so I'm not gonna. But in reading Athletic article about the Blues prospects, all right, one question kind of came to my mind, and it's something that we've kind of talked about in here a little bit, but not really a lot. We're really excited about Dvorsky and Snuggerud and Stenberg. There's some others in there. But with that said, it still seems from reading that article that the Blues are short on sort of game-changing talent, upper epsilon talent.
Right.
Is that going to keep this team from taking it to the next level? And then another question to that, and Alex, I asked you in the office of this a couple of days ago, at any point, do you see Doug Armstrong and Alex Steen maybe trying to take a couple of these high prospects and package them in a deal for a difference maker, forward, whatever that is? Just throwing it out there. Is this Blues rung of talent that's coming this way enough to be a difference maker to take the team to the next level? Because in reading some of those articles, and it planted the seed of doubt.
Yeah,
Let's just say that.
Take the first part here, and then you answer that question that you already gave him the answer to in the office the other day. But no, I'm joking. I'm joking.
You weren't there, buddy, so you don't know what I said. I could have said they've got 17 Hall of Famers in their pipeline because I over-exaggerate. Never.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And so Scott Wheeler and I wrote a piece the other day at The Athletic where he answered some fan questions, and that was one of his responses that you're saying is that they just don't have those upper echelon guys like some other organizations do. And that all stems to, the draft. And if you don't have a top 5, top 6 pick, it's hard to get one of those guys. Forget about the generational guys. Like a Macklin Celebrini, like even the guys at 3, 4, 5, look through the past 20 years draft, and you're going to find guys who are just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the guys that typically appear at the top of these draft rankings. So you can like your Robert Thomas at 20, you can like your Dvorsky at 10, but Dvorsky has to come up and show it before these people who evaluate the young prospects are going to give the Blues credit for having one of the top classes. And the other thing is, yeah, you're excited about Dvorsky, Stenberg, Lindstein. But what that is instead of a number 1, 2, 3 overall pick, it's a 10, 25, and 29.
Yeah.
So you've got great, just like Scott Wheeler said in the story, you've got great quantity with your quality. It's just not the star power quality.
But you know what teams typically do when they have quantity over quality? They bulk together quantity to go get quality on the trade market.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I feel like the Blues are going to be at. I don't know if you, yes, you want the star talent. Yes, you want the Macklin Celebrini in the draft, but to do that, you got to be bad for a really long time. The Blues, and Doug Armstrong always says this, they build as a pack mentality. They don't build like one superstar and then everybody else. And I think they've got star talent. Like, I view Robert Thomas as star quality player. I think Dylan Holloway might be star quality player the more we see him develop. And then from there, you have an eerily similar stretch of kind of what roster you had back when you won the Cup. Like, you have Tarasenko-esque in terms of Jordan Kyrou. You have Jaden Schwartz-esque in terms of Dylan Holloway. You've got a lot of pieces.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, can all those pieces work together to win the hockey game? But I've asked JR this I don't know how many times. I feel like the glaring hole still on this team is a top-line winger to play with Robert Thomas. And that is what they're in search of. Does Snuggerud become that? Does Holloway become that? Does Stenberg become that? Does Stansel become that? I have no idea. Statistics would tell you no, because those lower draft picks rarely turn out to be that player.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a team and there's another team out there, let's say the San Jose Sharks are still in a rebuild, and they've got a star quality player and they're not competing anytime soon, what do they want? They want a lot of younger players that they could put into their system for a guy that might not fit for the right now. That's where I feel like the Blues will pounce. I don't know who it's going to be, but I do see, whether it's this offseason, next offseason, I see the Blues trying to be aggressive and finding that missing ingredient to help push the rest of the team over the top.
That's fantastic. What a great answer from both you guys. You're both really smart at what you do. I hope you realize that. But it's also
I just made mine up.
I just recorded that, and I'm going to send that to my wife.
It's just and you know when I say concerning, I'm not
Don't
losing
let
sleep
Scott Wheeler
over this.
get to you.
Right,
Don't let Scott Wheeler get to
but man, you just sort of wonder, and so just reading that article again, I think it's just perspective, and perspective is very important. Guys, I hate to do this, but I got to go
do radio.
I got to go be on the radio. I had no idea the time at which that it was, and we just changed commercial time, so everything over there is all wonky and weird, and I'm friggin' uptight, and my butt's puckered.
Whoa.
It's just
Hey, now.
there's just a lot going on.
Do you have time for 5-second question?
Absolutely.
Okay, just a quick one. So I was listening to you the other day on this other job that you have that I can't believe you leave us for. And you played a song by Toad, right? Toad, is that the name of the band? Toadies. Toadies.
Yes.
There you go.
Pointfest band, actually.
You said, I've seen this band 37 times, and I don't think I've been to 37 concerts. You've seen the same band 37?
Okay, well, a couple things here. I was definitely, like, I've probably only seen the Toadies, like, 15 times probably over the years. But when I said that they were here, like, every month in the 90s, they were pretty much here almost every month or every other month.
Nice.
And so, and I mean, and that band still just slays. But I'll take it up a notch. The Urge, St. Louis band The Urge, who I would say one of my very favorite bands of all time. I have seen that band well over 100 times. I lost count.
Nice.
But, you know, back in the day, we would do runs where if they were playing Springfield, Illinois, Kansas City, you know, we would do the weekend runs with them. And, you know, it would just be, you know, like Columbia on a Friday night, Carbondale on a Saturday night, and you are absolutely hating your existence on Sunday as you're driving home because the sun is so bright.
Yeah,
It's so
and the
bright.
music is so loud even when it's on mute. I get that.
All right, here's my Donnie. Dude, that's a great answer. That was a great answer.
Yeah, that does sound like me. Guys, we got to go to a show.
All right.
Like,
guys,
for real.
I'm going to see Rascal Flatts in about a month and a half if you guys want to join.
Where are they playing?
Moline, Illinois.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't know where the hell that is, but I'm driving.
Isn't that? I thought that was a burb of Chicago or something because I think they get a lot of shows.
It's like 4.5 hours away, so it's like Chicago-esque.
Where do they play? Somebody's basement or?
No, man, big arena, I would imagine.
Donnie, I need
Sold-out
help
arena.
putting the air filter in at the house.
An air-
Come over.
Yeah, I could. No, you don't want me touching anything that has any sort of thing to do with your house. It would just be a bad thing.
I think you got it.
All right, guys, I got to go be on the radio.
No,
I'm so
you
sorry.
don't. Come on.
For our homeboy Jeff Burton, who we miss so very much, Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN, Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic, I'm Donnie Fandango. Thank you, as always, for listening, and let's go Blues.
The Last Minute Blues Podcast. Hear more at 1057thepoint.com.